Okay, this one's an oofer. Katie Healy's gone through a transition of kind of being everything for a small firm to making a really hard decision to go out and do her own thing. I can relate to so many aspects of her story, and I was frankly stuck on this for a long time. That like the latency between when I decided like this isn't going to be my forever thing, but finally built up the courage to decide like this is what my next thing will be. For me, man, that was hard. I've had some conversations with Katie at conferences, and I was like, this is just a story that people need to hear because there's so many people grappling with this exact thing right now. This was a fun convo, super sharp. She's gonna have so much success in doing her next thing. I think you like this one. Okay, Katie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
For folks who are not familiar with you, what's the 30-second Katie intro?
Well, I am a CPA. I've been in public accounting for 15 years. I, most importantly, am a wife and a mom to a 5-year-old daughter.
Nice.
Yeah.
We've talked kind of throughout the years, but like got sort of your latest story, and I feel like such a kindred spirit. I don't know. I feel like we kind of navigated such similar situations, kind of making like finding success in a firm, but then just having to get to a really hard decision and all the fears of the people you're letting down along the way and how you balance doing what's right for you versus what everybody else wants you to do. And so to kind of set up that context, maybe tell us like your journey through the firm that you've been with and kind of how you got to where you are in your career today.
Yeah. So I started with the firm that I've been with for 15 years. I started there as, just a entry level position, and I've worked my way up. We've grown exponentially. We started with like a staff of 3, and now we're at the staff of 11. It's pretty big. We have 1,800 clients, like 3 million
Wow.
in revenues.
Did you start there out of school?
So I kind of did life backwards, so to say. I went to college right out of high school and decided I did not love where I was going to college, left, and I actually got into accounting without a degree,
Okay.
working at a private golf club. And
Oh.
I did. And I really loved it. And so I was like, I got to go back to school and get my degree. And I knew I was living in a really small town. I moved back to the town that I grew up in Arizona, and it's very small. And that was not the place that I knew I would have a career in. And so I went back to school. I actually went to online school and got my education through the University of Phoenix. And once I had gotten my degree, I was like, I'm moving. So I moved down to the Phoenix metropolitan area. And that's where I didn't actually go right into public accounting. I worked in the accounting department for a property management company. But what was the catapult that got me into public accounting is in order to get my CPA license, I needed to work under a CPA. And so that's what got me into public. My friend said, I know someone that's hiring, you should reach out to them. And I did. And here we are.
So is this the only public firm you've worked for?
Only one. Yes.
Oh my gosh, the loyalty.
Yeah. And so the decision to leave has been very difficult, right? Being at one place for 15 years, and they're like family.
Yeah.
So going from so I've worked my way up over the 15 years. We're such a small, like family oriented firm that we've never really had titles or special roles. And so I'm like very technology savvy. And so I have worn many hats. I mean, I manage the IT, I train new staff, I hire staff, I deal with clients. I mean, I have a very integrated role. So, and it's a very traditional firm. And I was working just a lot. And I, knew when I joined Realize and saw what more modern firms are doing, I was like, oh my gosh, there's other options out there. And so, that's what kind of got me to the point where I wanted to explore other options.
That being a high performer in a firm that size, like you do everything. Like
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know if your experience was the same as mine. Because I came up in small firms too. I felt like I was surrounded by a bunch of accountants, but then I got sucked into like almost filling all the gaps, like tech over here and systems over here. And
Yes.
oh, look, guys, I found this new thing over here. We should try and pull this in. And they're like doing the work. And I'm like, no, look. But like before you know it, because in a firm that small, you don't really have redundancies of someone else
Mhm.
coming in behind you. Like you feel like you're kind of doing all that stuff at a certain point.
Oh, no, I don't kind of feel I was doing all those things, you know? Like, bringing in new technology, new software, new like, everything when I started, they were just barely starting to do, like, a paperless system. We're still not paperless, but far
Oh,
better than
wow.
originally, right? And then this year, we finally got off of a server, and we're 100% cloud-based now. And, like, those are all, like, pushes that I've made, like, "Hey, we need to modernize our firm a bit." And so, yeah.
Can I, okay, sidebar on that, the whole paper full to paperless transition, because I actually had somebody ask me this
Mhm.
question just the other day, and I didn't feel like I had a very good answer for him. The question was basically, what does my firm need to have lined up in order to make the transition to being paperless? And when I heard that, where my mind first went to was my situation. And I suspect your situation, where you're like, okay, I see that this needs to happen. I don't know that anybody else around me quite sees that this needs to happen because they've been doing it this way for a decade plus, and they really don't want to change. For a person in that situation, and I think like if I'm out of touch, I'm out of touch because I'm so far removed from being in firms that I'm a little bit more divorced from the emotions of it all than like you are, where you're kind of just going out the door. And so there's part of me from the outside that's like, think about if you're willing to put that whole thing on your back yourself for something you're building for somebody else. Like that's kind of where I'm
Mhm.
at now. You're like, you just did it. And like you're in the middle and you kind of got feet in both camps. How would you advise somebody like that who may be about to like take on this monumental task?
Well, any technology change is hard in a firm because you're gonna have the people that are completely against it, right?
Yep.
And so, luckily for, like, document management, they were using some form of paperless, but we still have an to this day, we still have a supply room full of paper files with
Nice.
stuff in it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it nice, but yes. And so I think, I mean, there's so many benefits, right? You can anyone can look at a file without having to go pull it, right? You can look at work papers from a prior year on a fly with a phone call with a client instead of having to go get a file, right? And so it is I mean, to get the information into a document management system is a lot. Someone has to scan all the papers in, or or someone is going to be responsible for that duty. And if you have a big client base, it's a lot, right? I think this was a long time ago, so I don't know exactly how the transition went to go. So 100%, not 100%, but mostly paperless. So we were originally, our tax software that we use is Lacert, and they had a DMS system that came along with
Mm-hmm.
Lacert. Well, years ago, they launched the partnership with SmartVault, and I knew we needed to be with SmartVault. We needed to have this client portal for the
Dude,
clients to access.
I
And
remember when
so,
Smart Vault was cool. Like there was a time when like that was the thing.
yeah, yeah. So we transitioned to SmartVault, and it was hard. It was a very hard transition just to get people used to the new system, how to do things, how to organize documents. And I mean, you want everything in a working order, right? You don't want it just thrown in there and try to figure out all the files. So I would say, like, start little. So start maybe with your entity clients, or start with your individuals and test it on a small group, right? So if you're a tax firm, pick your smallest group of people or a handful of them and have them test a document management system, especially if it has a client portal, right? To get feedback.
Do you think some of those big, like super ambitious projects are kind of what ultimately gave you confidence? Like
A hundred
I can
percent.
I can look back at a few of those big things where I'm like, there were situations where I was getting a lot of pushback, but I still knew that I was right. And I still had to find a way to navigate all that. And I think those are
Mhm.
like very formative moments for me.
Yeah, I actually, I was prepared to tell you this, that truly the reason I feel the change has been not as hard is because of the operation side experience that I have, the technology setup. I mean,
Mm.
obviously we transitioned to Smart Vault. Almost 3 years ago, we transitioned to Carbon. That was painful. That was very
Mm.
hard going from computer-based practice management to cloud-based and transitioning everything over. Oh my gosh, it was like, oh, it was hard on me, and it was really hard on the team to roll out and be open to the change. So I feel like software changes within a firm, right? So I have a big operational perspective of things because I've done the document management change. I've done the conversion to Carbon, which was very painful. Painful for me with the setup. I mean, I did everything. I set everything up and then we transitioned everybody over. It's a lot of work and it's very hard. And I learned a lot. And I think that prepared me to be able to go out on my own, knowing what I learned in these experiences. I definitely learned what I want and what I don't want. I don't want to have to go through a conversion, a practice management conversion again, because it is really painful and it took way longer than I anticipated. And unfortunately, we didn't go to Carbon immediately. It was Intuit's version of it,
Yeah.
and so I'm so thankful that Carbon took it over because it's 100 times better than it was when it was ran by Intuit, and it's just painful. And so I feel like the thing someone in my shoes could do is get your hands on the operational side, learn software, learn the IT things, take classes on learning, new software, like what's out there. I mean, honestly, if I wouldn't have gotten my hands into these things within the firm, I don't know that I would be prepared to go out on my own because I can get the people, but there's also the office side that has to operate in order to
Yeah.
effectively manage your business.
This episode is sponsored in part by SafeSend One, who helps you automate the entire tax workflow from taking information, actually before that, from engaging the client, do an intake, clear through, delivery. Engagement letters, file transfers, organizers, e-cigs, tax return assembly and delivery. Now with a new and innovative AI-driven gather capability. We actually did a demo video on this that's coming out soon. It is really good. SafeSend supports CCH Access, Pro System FX, UltraTax, Go System Tax, Lacert. Don't take my word for it. How's this sound? The average user takes them 3 to 4 minutes to deliver a return, and 94% of e-signatures and file forms come back within 15 days. You know those 8879 sitting in the file cabinet? You know those stinkers? SafeSend's can make that a whole lot easier for you. Explore how SafeSend's AI-powered tools can make your whole firm more productive. Check out the link down in the show notes to learn more. This episode is sponsored in part by FinDaily, actually an app that I founded a few years ago and then sold. FinDaily, in short, it's almost like an email marketing platform, but for all of your financial data. So you build these email templates and then you plug in like banking balances, QuickBooks or Xero data, like outstanding bills, outstanding invoices. You connect this email template to all these different variables, and then you set that email to go out to your client on a recurring basis on a schedule. And then right before it sends, makes an API call to all those sources, pulls the most updated information into the email, and sends it out. Now, I was doing a cash reporting process for my clients. They were paying top dollar for it, but it was a pain in the neck to go out and like wrangle all the stuff I needed for those emails. So I actually founded this to automate that process. How's that sound? A fully automated cash reporting service that your clients will pay top dollar for you? It's a thing, I can tell you because I've done it. Pretty nice. FinDaily will even let you connect with like multiple accounting files. So you can push out a single email digest, pulling from like multiple sources, bank accounts, credit cards. Pretty cool stuff, okay? Check out the link down in the show notes to learn more. What was the first thing, I'm trying to think of like contextualizing, this is gonna be landing for so many people who are in a similar situation to you. And the whole, like what makes that just so emotionally challenging I wanna get into. But contextualizing that, what was the moment for you where like you first kind of got outside of that groupthink bubble of the firm? Because I think 95% of people never really emerge from that. I'm in this little tiny like ecosystem, and I never go out and see things outside of that to get perspective.
Yeah, so I think really what changed for me was the first year I went to QuickBooks Connect, which was,
Mm,
gosh, I don't know, 8 maybe years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. And just meeting people, right? It's really all about the community, right? And putting yourself out there with people who are like-minded like you. And you don't know what is out there unless you're asking. And in
yeah.
all honesty, the Realize group is truly what opened my eyes to know that I could most definitely do this on my own. I mean, most definitely. And even know that firms operated differently. I mean, I've worked in this small firm my entire public career, and I didn't know what was out there. I mean,
Hmm.
I have friends within the firm that work there, and they came from big firms, so they have some experience I don't. And I didn't know that, gosh, there's so many options.
Yeah.
and and better, in my opinion, better ways of running a firm so that there's a better work life balance. It doesn't have to be that traditional way, and I didn't know any different until I put myself out there.
So it's one thing to be, I don't know, the person driving this change, and I went through like this. I don't know, when I first discovered the world outside of my firm, because it was 2018 Con is what it was for me. Like that was when like my mind opened. And then I went through
Yeah.
this phase of like being a know-it-all because I could steal all these ideas from other people, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna take all these to my firm. We're gonna plug them all in, and some would work and some wouldn't. But I didn't like immediately go to, oh, well, this means I need to leave, or this means something else is a better opportunity for me. What were like the very beginnings of that? I don't know, that feeling, and like I have to imagine, like in my case, there was a lot of resistance to that. Like I knew this inside of me, but I was like burying it because the notion of doing something that hard was just so scary.
Yeah, so you're meaning like the realization that I needed to make the change?
Yeah.
Like what came to it? Yeah. So I like change, right? I'm all for making changes within the firm for a better work-life balance, right? Work smarter, not harder has literally been my mentality. And I have been the leader of that within the firm. And, I would say the point that it really, I mean, I've been making changes in the 15 years that I'm there, but maybe not to the tune of where I would want the firm to be if I were the owner of it. And so experiencing what other firms can do, and I was like, "Whew, well, maybe I can just do this on my own," and realizing like I can just set this up to begin with from zero and do it the way I want to do it without forcing other people to change. And I think it's the change that people have to overcome. And that is very, very hard. And I mean, not to say that there's been no change, because that's definitely not the case. There's been a ton of change within the firm, all for good, not at the pace that I would like to see, so to say.
So you eventually came to the point where like I've got to either go do something different or go do my own thing.
Yeah,
What
the work
was
life balance.
Oh, was the work-life balance was the
Yeah, for
main thing?
sure. For sure. Yeah, because the catapult was always like, let's do things differently within the firm to provide a better balance for everybody, right? Never just for me, for everybody. And this last year has been probably the most challenging year of my entire career. We had one of the partners, her husband is incredibly sick, and she stepped away completely from the firm to become 100% caregiver. So that happened in March of this year. And this was, this was going on prior to that, but March is when she stepped away. Mid tax season, a lot of work got moved on to the rest of the team. And I think I just hit I can't do this anymore. I literally said, this is the last tax season I'm working like this. We're over capacity. We don't have the staff, and I don't want to work like this anymore. And no matter how much change happens, I just don't think it's going to provide the work-life balance I'm trying to achieve in my life.
This is the $1 million question. How do you stack those like scales of the universe of on the one hand, you're like, I can be the hero here and everybody really needs me. And there may be all sorts of other things happening outside my control that makes them need me even more.
Mhm.
Versus, I got a kid at home, I got a husband. Like, how do you make that calculation? Like, ultimately, what does it come down to for you?
It was a very hard decision. It was not taken lightly by any means. I mean, I love my team at work, but I love my family more. And I knew I just could not do this anymore. It wasn't fair to my family that I'm working the kind of work that I'm working. And I just knew I couldn't do this. It wasn't fair to I mean, there's nothing worse than your daughter coming telling you as you're tucking her in bed at night, Mommy, please don't tell me you have to work more than night. You just got home from work. Or on the weekends, Mommy, you have to work again. And I just didn't want that anymore. If I had no children, I don't think it would matter as much. But now that I have children, my family is way more important than any job, quite honestly. Even though I love my job, I still love my job. My family is number one.
Yeah, that was I remember talking with you about this, and that was a big thing for me too. Was like there's something like universally grounding about having kids. Like, you have this thing that matters more than all the other stuff, and it kind of puts everything else in perspective. How does this play, like, without getting too detailed? How does this ultimately play out, and how do you do the calculation of this is gonna suck no matter what, and it's gonna hurt no matter what? But how did you come to a decision of how to do that?
Of how to make the change.
Yeah.
So, um, being it was very hard. I'll tell you, my husband was not on board initially at all.
Oh, wow.
He was not at all. It took some convincing, um, because one, is not a fan of change, and my income is the income that mostly supports our family.
Mm.
And I would be walking away from something very steady to a lot of unknowns. You know, would I get enough money to coming in to support our lifestyle? Would we have to make changes to our lifestyle? Like, at first, when I told him, like, I think I just want to go out on my own, he was just he was not he was not he was not very happy. It was not that he wasn't happy, but he was just it was a very hard sell for sure. And once we got talking more about it, and like, I think the number one thing I did was I ran numbers, right? Like, real data. Like, here's
Sure.
how
Yeah,
much
accounting through and
I
through. Let me
for
show you the
sure.
financial model.
Yeah, for
That'll
sure. Like,
show them.
let me run the numbers for you, and I could see, like, I needed to make X X coming in per month to, like, still be where we're at today. And so when I did that, and I've had a side hustle for many years, and so I I already have money coming in from that. So if I have this minus what I need, this is the change. And I said, this really boils down to like 7 more monthly recurring revenue clients, right? That's not a lot. Like, I can do 7, and like breaking it down to smaller amounts. And then that was like, well, this is more achievable. And it was more achievable for me to see it that way too, because it is scary. It is very scary walking away from something guaranteed. And so when we looked at that together, I was like, okay, we can do this. I can do this. This is no big deal. And then the other thing set in is like, oh man, I'm really going to put the team in a pickle, right? Because I have such an important role within the firm, and I don't want to leave them high and dry. And so I thought long about this, like, how I was strategically planned, like, how could I set the team up for success with my departure, right? I manage the accounting side of the firm, so I manage our bookkeeper and our reviewer. I manage all that, so I have that to take into account, plus all of the technology stuff that I manage. I mean, so I'm like thinking in my head, okay, gosh, how am I going to do this? So the logical thing to me was to give 2 months notice, because
Mm.
I couldn't give 2 weeks and be like, let me just train everybody and set everyone up for success in 2 weeks. It was just not possible. We're already short staffed. It's extension season. And there's just no feasible way to get work done and also train people on the team. And so I just knew in my head 2 months was the number I needed to give.
I could tell you, for me, like, the moment there was like a moment that I always, in every role that I've left, like I build up the moment of telling that person that I don't want to disappoint more than anything else. Like there's all these other peripheral things and you're like worried about hosing this person and that person. But for me, the like climax is that one person who's my boss or something like that, that I'm going to have to tell that's going to be super disappointed. What was that like building to that moment? Like how did that shake out? Like, was that just, I don't know, as challenging as you thought it would be?
Yeah. So, I wasn't nervous, so to say, to have the conversation. I was nervous for the reaction, right?
Mm,
Because I knew it would come as a shock.
yeah.
I never talked about leaving, nothing like that. So I knew it was going to come as a shock, and it did. It was very apparent when I delivered the message, and I kind of expected that anyways, right? Like I knew going in it was going to be a shock. And, you know, do I regret anything? Absolutely not. Like I felt so much relief after making
Mm,
this decision public, right? You know, I was like, I felt a weight lifted from me because I've been carrying this decision inside, trying to strategically plan, you know, how I can set the team up for success, knowing I was leaving and then making the decision. And it was really hard because, I mean, we're like family, you know, I've been there for 15 years. They've seen me get married. They've seen me have a baby, you know, like it's, they're like family. And so it's always hard delivering hard news to family, right? And so it'd be one thing if it was someone I didn't care for. You don't really have, you know, the emotions involved with it, but it is someone I care about. And so, you know, it was really hard. It was a hard decision. And, you know, but I feel like we're in a good space now with my duration here at the firm. I'm here to set up the team for success. You know, I've been trying to record Loom videos for everybody on the tasks that I do, and also train people one-on-one with the things that I do. So my intention was never to leave on a bad note and never to leave them high and dry.
This episode is sponsored in part by TeamUp, who helps you find talented accountants in the Philippines. This week in TeamUp, literal stuff that happened this last week. TeamUp placed their first marketing placement, actually, into a firm, while a VA and a tax accountant both got offers last week. They have 18 active recruiting projects, and in the last week and a half, they've had one firm start looking for a bookkeeper, 3 firms start looking for senior accountants, and have had 3 signed job offers. Accountant, senior accountant, and management accountant gang. It's happening. People are doing this stuff because it works. Same thing I did. Hired a bunch of accountants in the Philippines. Hired a bunch of accountants onshore too. But man, like it is, as I've shared, it is how I would build my firm tomorrow. About 2 offshore hires for every onshore hire. And that gives me the flexibility to grow to where I want to grow to. When the reality is, like it's very challenging to find onshore accountants. Think about it. I know there's a lot of blockers associated with this, but give it some thought. TeamUp's going to make it as easy as possible for you to hire people directly in the Philippines. Learn more at the link down in the show notes. Today's episode is sponsored in part by LiveFlow. Gang, LiveFlow launched a new dashboarding platform, and I got to have a play with it the other day. It's actually pretty darn cool. They've got loads of templates like they've always had. LiveFlow, for context, in the past, they were a utility that connected your QBO, your Xero, with your Google Sheets, your Excel, so that pull any like client data into there. Now they're doing the same thing, but for dashboards. A bunch of dashboard templates you can swipe with, like full-blown, like a suite, like combinations of all these different reports, executive summaries, and it all connects to that client data the same way their spreadsheet tool did. So you literally just pick a different company from a dropdown. So I could make a cool custom reporting suite, looks super impressive, and then to like deliver it to another client, literally as simple as changing the dropdown to a different company and pulling all that live data in. A no-brainer way if you're tippy-toeing into advisory to put better information in front of your clients. That's LiveFlow's new dashboarding feature. Learn more, the link down in the show notes. I think that's anybody that runs a firm like that is their biggest nightmare is like exactly that like central super core person surprising you. As you transition to doing your own thing and ultimately then have nobody to blame but yourself, do you think about, is there a different sort of environment you could foster that wouldn't lead to surprises like that would maybe encourage more transparency so that if something like that was going to happen, it wasn't a big ta-da, this is final sort of conversation. And maybe before that, it's like a kind of, here's what I'm thinking, maybe like longer term planning sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say in my firm, I would probably have specific roles for people so that your all your eggs aren't in one basket, so to say. So
Yeah.
if someone does step away, you're only managing that one role instead of multiple roles.
Yeah.
But I know it's hard in a small firm, right? You have a small firm with, you know, a budget that you have, you know, for wages, and I get it. And in order to stay, I mean, you know, competitive, I feel like there are things that smaller firms have to do in-house versus outside help for it, right? And so I mean, I to that tune, I do understand that, but I think the key for me would be to have strategic roles with everyone in the firm. So not one person is doing 5 jobs.
Yeah, very true. You know, somebody's going to listen to this and go out and start their own firm because of this.
I hope they do, you know. It is honestly been a hard decision, but the best decision that I could have made. I've been working on this for several months leading up to giving my notice, and literally so much opportunity is coming my way that I was not expected at all. And I'm really excited to see what the next 6 months brings. Honestly, I have I've gotten a lot of great feedback, and to the point where I'm pretty sure I'm going to start hiring
Dang.
somebody.
Wow.
Hmm.
Jeez.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that was going to be my next question is like there's a
Hmm.
bunch of people listening to this who are like on the edge and like thinking about doing this thing but they can't see what's over that thing.
Yeah.
You can just see a peek over it right now. Is
Hmm.
it what you thought it would be? Is it different than what you thought it would be? Like, what is that peek over the horizon for you? I know you said some like surprise work came out of the woodworks when you just said you were leaving.
Yeah. So it is moving a lot faster than I expected for sure. I was not
Nice.
expecting the clients that want to come on board. I was not expecting this. I was just like, let me get through, let me, you know, start building, and it's way different than I expected. Not in a bad way, just and definitely good. But I would say I have learned a lot from listening to your podcast, honestly, and I am not going to wait until I need somebody to hire them. So like I anticipate by like January I would need someone, right? I'd rather hire them now, take the hit financially initially, but I know it's not like a permanent thing because literally so much work is coming in.
Cool. That's awesome. Let me wrap us up with a kick in the shins here, because you've told me that you've always been super career focused. You've always worked a lot. Is there a risk that you go out and you do your own thing and you still work your ass off?
Yes, there is. But, you know, I feel like I have learned the word no really well the last, you know, couple years. And I already know my capacity of what I'm willing to work on. I have the number of, you know, tax clients that I'm wanting to deal with. And I'm strategically setting up my firm to work with the kind of clients that I want to work with that fit in the exact model that I want versus, you know, just taking anyone that walks through the door. I don't want that. And I think that's what's kind of different with me with starting up is I'm not hurrying for whomever just comes through, right?
Yeah.
If you fit my model, awesome. And I would love to work with you. If not, I'll refer you to someone else because it's not what I want. I don't want to be burnt out. I want to enjoy working with my family or being with my family. I want to enjoy my work, but also want to spend time with my family. Like I want to go on field trips with my daughter's school. She has spring break. I want to be able to go on a spring break vacation, you know, when she is on spring break in March. And so I definitely know my limits and they're hard limits. So they are non-negotiables and I am going to stick to them.
That's good. It's so easy to It's so easy to walk out of a situation saying, it's going to be about the family. And then you walk into the new situation and you're like, oh, well, now it's about this thing I'm building and my pride in this. And like how quickly you can just stuff that in the couch and it's just, you trade one set of problems for another. But I'm in your boat. I would much rather have nobody to blame but myself. Like even if I got it wrong on the first try, like ultimately having that agency, I think is like, it doesn't get any better than that. And I think a often overlooked like thing about accountants that is just really badass is we are not intimidated by entrepreneurship. I mean, we are, but like on an entirely different level than normies. Like you have a conversation with your spouse, it's like like doing your own thing. Excuse me, like I have no understanding of what that even is because I don't know anybody in my life that even does that. And we're just like, you should see these knuckleheads. I help a whole bunch of them and they're not as smart as you would think. Like that's such a cool trait that we take for granted.
I know, I have this awesome powerhouse of women in this mastermind group that I'm in, and literally they're all business owners, and they all have said they have not regretted leaving where they were to be where they're at. You might not make as much money, and I'm okay with that. I'm looking literally for a lifestyle change, not a dollar value change. And if it comes at a cost of making less, I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with that.
Out of curiosity, who's that? What type of person is that first hire going to be?
Probably a junior accountant that can help with. I actually have quite a few accounting clients because I have been doing a bookkeeping for quite a long time, and long before I even started working at the firm. And so that's growing very quickly when my news got out. And so I will probably hire someone that can help with that kind of stuff initially. I actually enjoy the client interaction. I love my clients. I love dealing with them. I love helping them. I love helping their businesses succeed. And I'm not in a position where I want to walk away from that yet.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. This is obviously like it's fresh enough to where it's kind of a sensitive thing, but I think that's also what makes it super like meaningful for folks. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm glad that I can share this with everyone. I mean, I think it's just a matter of ripping that Band-Aid off and doing it. I mean, worst case scenario, Rebecca Driscoll told me, she's like, worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. You can just go back and work at a firm. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's true.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Yes, like there is no such thing as a worst case scenario. The framing I think of that as a lot is like me leaving a firm. What if the firm has to downsize? What if we have to let staff go or something like that? And it's like, it is such a good time to be an accountant. Like nobody is going to be left to high and dry. Like anyone will take you right back.
There's so much work that's needed in the accounting field. And with the shortage of accountants, I know the job would be there if I needed it. But I am not in a position to throw in a towel in 6 months. Maybe after a year, I'd consider it. But at the trajectory things are going right now, I don't see this being a problem.
Super cool. If somebody wanted to get in touch, is that a thing you'd encourage? And if so, where?
Yeah, I would absolutely be happy to chat with anybody. I've actually talked to a couple people that, were interested in learning a little bit more about me. And I absolutely would be happy to chat with others that are kind of on that fence of deciding, do I stay, do I go? The easiest way would be to connect on LinkedIn, Katie Healy, or you can visit my website, scaleedaccounting.com, and hit contact and reach out that way.
Very cool. Katie, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, take care.
You too.